We don't parent in a social and political vacuum. I'm not convinced that the current trajectory, my kids will grow up in an environment that offers them a befitting future.
I mean, I don't know what to make of matric results because number one, a lot of these kids struggle to get into higher institutions of higher learning.
It just makes you feel as a parent that it doesn't matter what I tell my child to do, that environment won't support their ambitions, no matter how well they exercise themselves or apply themselves, rather.
The jobs that they have today, we have today, will not exist. A lot of the jobs that we used to have back in the day do not exist.
It's hard to see how, for where we are as a country, we are creating that environment that will enable these new, career paths and, will allow young people to fully self-actualize. So these are things that preoccupy you. Have I done enough in terms of security? Have I done enough in terms of putting this, that, and the other that will protect my family?
Welcome to the latest episode of the Timers Playbook. Remember to like, share, and rate the content at the end of this podcast. Today we have a different kind of show. We'll be focusing on the annual State of the Nation address, which recently took place on the 8th of Feb, 2024, Cape Town City Hall in Cape Town. Now, generally, this is where the country's president gives his report card, right, of the past year and his future plans for government. Now, as per tradition, opposition parties come out and they say, no, he's been talking shit. And that then feeds into the regular news cycle and you go back and forth. Now, the way I see this thing, I think it's a good opportunity for the president to bring the nation into his confidence, gain our trust by being transparent. And I guess as far as a politician can be transparent and be honest by admitting to what worked and what didn't work, particularly as we are in an election year. That is the gist of our discussion. But not from a political stance. We want to talk about SONA from being fathers. How do things such as SONA impact me and my family? And I've got my good friend Sam Matabula. He's back on the show and he's going to help us break this down. Sam.
Yo.
Happy Valentine's, boss. It's Valentine's today as we're recording.
Yeah, man. Whatever that means. Happy Valentine.
Valentine.
Yeah.
Oh, my man, your kids are dressed in red and white. They're celebrating this thing. This is how it starts, boss. This is how the machine grabs them.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. That I know this is, the commerce has got them already.
Yeah.
It's fine,
All right, cool, man.
Feed into it.
So, welcome to the show. You did so well last week. We thought, let's bring this guy back.
Yeah.
And let's chat this thing because it's something that's close to your heart, right?
No, for sure.
Just to kick off, I mean, politics, governance, all this world. Why is it so important to you?
Yeah. So, for me, and I think you set the tone quite nicely. Talking as a parent, talking as a father, and for me, we don't parent in a social and political vacuum. I think that's the first thing. We raise kids in a political environment which can have a significant impact, in shaping our kids' life chances. And, above and beyond the decisions that we make in our sort of like micro family structures and environment, so that macro political social environment matters. And so that's why, as a dad, as a parent, things like politics and SONA would matter to me. And I think, on the backdrop of that reality, then, issues of politics, governance become very important. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's why.
And then SONA specifically, what actually is it to you? Is it something that you followed over the years? And do you care about it?
Yeah, look, personally, I'm a political animal. I'm a political junkie. So these things, will always pique my interest. Yeah, well, I absolutely do care about SONA. And I think for me, SONA is meant to do two fundamental things. On the one hand, it's you sort of get a reflection on the year that has been. And two, the governing party of the day, and in our case, it's been one governing party for the last 30 years, they sort of set the tone of what is to come in that calendar year politically. And I think that's the sort of like theoretical or normative value of SONA. There's also sort of a significant symbolism to SONA. You know, you see the state, it parades itself almost like in peacock-like fashion. You know, you see all these MPs on the red carpet in their dresses. You see these military drills, etc. Sort of like the state in its full glory. You know, like showing off. You know, you know, like whether you know, there's been a lot of politicization around the SONA and whether people think it's actually valuable. But I think those are the two fundamental things about SONA, at least theoretically or normatively. That's what it's supposed to do. And whether or not, you know, promises were fulfilled or what's to come is realistic. I think that's a whole other conversation.
Sure.
But I think in and of itself, you know, there is some sort of value to SONA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the things in and around that, right? So you're saying the gesturing, the peacock fashion, like, and I suppose also it's the opening of parliament, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And in our country, we'd always are looking and seeing where funds and money is going. You know, all of that. Again, is it necessary? Right? Can we just volumnyango singene parliament?
Look, I think
because
that's,
it's also become like part of the social calendar.
100%.
It's like you want to be seen there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, exactly. So there is that element to it, and there also is this element of, as you're saying, it costs a lot, and I think you would have probably picked up if you're tuned into the news cycle that there's been an attempt to cut down on the cost, you know. And even that, I think, is partially symbolic and a response to that political pressure to say, but there's so much going on in our country that could use money, but you're busy with these, you know, parades and sort of meaningless, you know, exercises. At least that's what people think, and I think that's largely due to the political environment that has been created over the years in which SONA takes place. So, but I think if things were a little better, I don't know if people would be complaining about it in that fashion.
No.
You know, to say it's a waste of money. But I think, you know, it's a function of what has become the political environment. So.
No, agreed. I mean, if things are, I mean, when you're doing well in life, you can get away with other things, right?
For
if
sure.
you want to try stuff, you want to experiment, it's easier to get away with stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So getting into SONA itself, I mean, the president spoke a lot about how the ANC has transformed lives, the lives of South Africans, right? And it's part of what he has to say. He's not going to get there and be like, you know what, guys, comrades, I get better. And they used Poor Dintswalo as an example. So I wonder all the Dintswalos in South Africa, how much flack they're getting at the moment, you know? So in that sense, and looking into the future, do you feel that your kids are growing up in a South Africa that's future fit?
For sure. So I think the one thing about SONA, it isn't a binding policy statement.
Okay.
You know, in the sense that you can necessarily use that concretely to say to hold, you know, the executive accountable. So in a strict sense, it's not a binding policy statement, but a statement of intent in terms of the aims of the government of the day, almost like high level.
Yeah.
You know, corporate speak sometimes.
Sure.
Like high level.
High level.
Yeah. So that's what it is. And so, yeah, you know, our kids growing up in a South Africa that is future fit, and the reference to Dintswalo, you know, one of the news agencies actually found Dintswalo, who's 30 years old. I don't know if you saw that this week. They actually found Dintswalo,
someone who's 30,
who's Dintswalo, and is absolutely having a sort of horrific life experience, you know, that is contrary to the picture that the president was painting.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that was done. I don't know if that was done intentionally, but you know,
and if that Dintswalo is real,
and if that, well, this one is a fictional character that the president was talking about, but the one that
both of them,
the one that they found was from Soweto.
Okay, Dintswalo Mambele.
Tintswalo
So
Mampela.
they say.
Yeah.
The news agencies. Remember, it's news also.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
entertainment as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. So yeah, there was. And apparently she had done a policing degree and she's never worked a day in her life, you know.
Okay.
So she was just recounting how, you know, the story that the president had painted is a far, you know, removed reality from her, you know, from her life. And so I think, to be fair to the president, though, I think the reference to Tintswalo was well intended.
Yeah.
Was well intentioned. You know.
You think so?
Yeah, you know, and I think there is an element of sort of like of truth in the sense that there are some of those progressive policies that we've seen over the years that would have seen a Tintswalo type character benefit in the way that he's outlined. But you know, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
So
and those are simple things, right? Those things should be given. It's not
sure.
necessarily that. I think a lot of people felt that, you know, RTB homes, access to NAFSAs,
exactly,
you know, it should be standard, right? People should have good homes, actually, not RTP homes. Access to homes, access to education, the ability to make a living.
100%
standard.
And I think that's what permeated that's what sort of permeates the sort of social and political mood now currently, is that people feel that the bar is so low that how are you know, celebrating those things as you know, major progress over 3 decades, when those things should be a given, you know. So and I think the reference in that sense, then, you know, the reference to Tintswalo becomes a bit unfortunate in my view, and it sort of rings hollow and potentially demonstrates I don't know, almost like an obtuse and sort of disconnectedness on behalf of the government of the day, in that they're not reading the room currently, you know. And so, like I say, while it was well intentioned, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And if you're listening to the debates in the you know, post, because after the SONA is delivered, then MPs, the rest of like opposition parties go and debate the thing. You know, they having that Tintswalo metaphor for breakfast.
Of course.
You know, each and every political party.
Yeah, I've given them the fodder.
Exactly. Just poking holes at it, and you know, and what they are saying is borne out by concrete facts. You know, so yeah, and I'm not convinced that the current trajectory, my kids will grow up in an environment that offers them a befitting future. Because what I'm seeing currently is that it almost doesn't matter what choices they make, because, or what choices we make as parents, and subsequently what choices our kids make. It's likely that the political environment in which they exercise those choices will fail them. And case in point, you look at the doctor strike. You know, growing up, if you studied medicine, it was it was a guaranteed, you know, ticket to success, if you will. Now doctors can't find jobs. You know, what is that about? So
doctors are striking.
Doctors are on strike
at the moment.
You know, we've never seen a scenario like that in this country. So it just makes you feel as a parent that it doesn't matter what I tell my child to do, that environment won't support their ambitions, no matter how well they exercise themselves or apply themselves rather. That they'll land in an environment that doesn't support their individual ambitions. So that's my worry.
Okay. Talking about that, right, and your children and looking into the future. I mean, we recently had the matric results, and President mentioned it also. I think it's the best that they've done in a long time.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what to make of matric results, because number one, a lot of these kids struggle to get into higher institutions of higher learning. There's debates about the validity of our education system in any case, right? So is it the right kind of education to set kids up for the future, right? And kids struggle to get into university. There isn't enough space, let alone the fact that a lot of them cannot afford to get into the universities they want to get into. But getting into university is just one thing. Now, after that, you have to go find work, right? I don't know what kind of degrees they're doing, because we're sitting at an expanded unemployment rate of just over 40%, right, of the population, which is mad. Now, are the kids, number one, with this matric results thing, knowing that the jobs in future are not what they're going to study?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how are your young people going to find work? You know, and does it really matter?
Yeah. Look, I mean, so again, I think it's two sides to the coin, if you will. I think on an individual and sort of micro level, when your child does well in matric, it's something that's worth celebrating. It's an achievement. So yes, it's something worth writing home about. But then on the other hand, you temper that celebration with a bit of caution, precisely for the reasons that you've outlined.
Yeah.
And you've passed matric, but again, at the risk of repetition, does the political structural environment, enable you to maximize on that pass? Are you able to maximize on that opportunity that you've created through your matric pass? And as you say, with all these harrowing statistics that show what the picture is like, you really start to wonder.
Well, you I mean, I know we are still some ways away, right, from that. But
yes.
I mean, I've got a niece now. She's in grade 9. There's a nephew. He's just, I think, doing his first year, right?
Yeah.
And it's important for me what they study, and what they want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if you're passing matric with 15 distinctions, but you're going to study humanities. No, I studied humanities.
Same here. I was gonna attack you there. I was gonna come for you.
But I'm saying, is the system equipped for? Is it future fit? Essentially, right? I understand the need for formative education and to get people to learn the basics of reading, writing, constructing sentences, mathematics, just the basics, and just getting into that framework of being ready for the world, not necessarily work, but for the world.
For the world, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we are going through the school system. You go into a university system. In South Africa, people cannot find work. But the world is changing so much that the degrees, the way we're educating them, isn't future fit. The jobs that they have today, we have today, will not exist. A lot of the jobs that we used to have back in the day do not exist. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Nowadays, I mean, I used to work in a call center, and that was the job to have.
Sure.
Things are so automated now. You can, if you have an issue with said company, they've got WhatsApp chats now. It's easier to get hold of them than it was before, although call centers do exist.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With AI and its innovation, copywriting, such skills, script writing in my field, can really be automated.
Yeah.
So my question is then, what's the point?
Yeah. Look, I mean, just latching onto that, now you have jobs like drone pilots that didn't exist. Yeah. You've got things like game design. Gaming is big. I didn't know you could actually study a whole qualification for game design. You've got big data and analysis. You've got software development, ethical hacking, virtual reality, blockchain. As you say, things that, I mean, we're not that old, but that just shows you how quickly things are changing, So there's all these things. And that's a difficulty, right? And I think there's two layers here. Again, it's about the individual potential and readiness for a world that is fast evolving. And the second thing is about whether the government of the day has its finger on the pulse, is tuned to that evolution and change in order for it to adequately create an environment, an enabling environment which will allow young people to participate, in that, evolving and changing world to full effect. And again, without necessarily just wanting to sound negative and contrarian, it's hard to see how, for where we are as a country, we are creating that environment that will enable these new, career paths and, will allow young people to fully self-actualize in these new things that they are growing up with, like your drone pilot, game design, those type futures. So, not to sound bleak, and because I think it's it's sort of like easy to be negative and just bash for the sake of bashing, but it's very hard to see how it is that the current environment will enable our children to be future fit and ready.
Okay. So you're a parent. What do you make of that? Now what?
It's definitely worrying.
Yeah.
It's worrying because you make certain decisions as a parent, and you want to create a certain environment for your child in which your child thrives. But if that is, and this is at a micro level, but if that isn't mirrored by or isn't enabled by a macro environment that will be able to
enable and support that,
able to support that, it's difficult. It makes it difficult for you as a parent, because what do you tell your child when time comes to pass that they step out into the world and they find that the world is actually not what it's cut out to be. I mean, I listened to this other girl on one of the news channels as well, who said, I wish I didn't even finish matric. What was the point of finishing matric? Because the world after matric, no one had told me that it would be this unforgiving and unaccommodating.
Yep.
And that, as a parent, that really got me. And I was thinking, shucks, so that's, could we be faced with a similar sort of conundrum at the end of this journey? Our kids are still young, fortunately, and like you say, we're still some way away from that reality. But that really struck me.
Yeah. But we're still investing in it. We're investing in their education. We pay a lot for school fees in the hopes that this will help set them up for a better future. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it starts now. I mean, you're going to wake up one day and be like, okay, cool, I'm taking out the school system, unless you do. Right. And it's not so far away, like I said. I mean, these people are going to be in the working world. But nonetheless, it's not even about the working world only. It's about that macro environment you speak about. Yeah. It's what kind of environment our kids are growing up in, right? And we'll get to things such as safety and security. What are they being influenced by? You know, what kind of society are we breeding as a people? Yeah. But, speaking about these opportunities for kids, which all leads to the economy, right? That's macro level. How are we growing as a country? So which in itself helps create these opportunities, So our GDP, our growth is marginal, right? So we had some successes last year, 2 quarters on the upswing, although marginal. Yeah. So for me, if the economy is not really growing and it's shrunk, it's even harder to find these opportunities, So I always think about, is this the right place for me and my family? Yeah. Right? I mean, on a micro level, I could contribute, but ultimately, I do need to create opportunities for my family. Yeah. And I've always said this to you. I'm always wondering, am I at the right place, as in South Africa, for this to happen? Yeah. I'm glad you're asking that question, and then you took the conversation there, because increasingly, so immigration used to be a white phenomenon. Yeah. But increasingly, you're seeing a lot of black families also reconsidering their options and actually asking the same question. Should we be here? Is this the place? But I have a very particular view on this. And I used to be very anti-immigration. You stay here, you fix here. This is your home. That was me. But yeah. And I mean, there are, I think, real questions around, is the grass really greener on the other side? Yes. And where you're seeing people who have moved, who are actually saying that, shucks, perhaps things are not as I don't know, as they are made out to be here. We live in shoe boxes abroad. We're paying, we're playing over the odds for accommodation. We don't have space, things like that. So then, and it ultimately boils down to individual choice, But I think, when you talk about the economy, and without like sort of presuming any economic expertise, I think there's a few basic things that I think we
understand or ought to understand about economic growth and how it impacts our daily lives. And I don't think that's only the sort of, reserve of people who are economically inclined and whatever. Because at its base level, a growing economy means that there'll be more available to more people.
Yeah.
Poverty is reduced, improved living standards are realized, etc., etc. So, and when that doesn't happen, then it starts to prompt questions like the one that you're asking. And you start looking. And I think that is a legitimate question to be asking. Because to an extent, given the way our political system is structured, and as much as we want to get involved and changed, short of forming a political party and opening political parties,
or joining
a political party,
and being active.
And in as much as I want us all to join political parties and be active, I also understand and appreciate that.
Won't join any. What you saying? Oh, okay.
So, and I wish that was everybody's sort of like thinking and life, but that's not how it goes. And I think people are legitimate, and the world is bigger now. We've become more globalized, we've become more integrated, and that is also subject to its own debates and what it means. But I think that is a legitimate sort of way of seeing things to say that maybe, hey, hang on, my options are not limited to just my country, and that, hey, maybe my kids could find a life and forge a life elsewhere, and we could set them up for that kind of thing.
Well, your kids go to the German school, so I think you're already setting them up for that. But that's the point, though, right?
Yeah,
that's the point, that if you have put yourself in a position, and we're fortunate enough to have worked, and obviously for me even to have had opportunities to study, as in bursaries and scholarships, now that you have the ability now to decide where your kid goes to school, right? And we chose the German school partly because it's exposure to the world, right? Even in the classroom, even before they travel, it's just who is in their environment, who their friends are. And
definitely.
At some point, they will have the ability to travel and go see the world and be like, you know what, you go try it out and see. But we're going to give you the foundation to be able to do that. Unfortunately, the majority of South Africans are not in the same position, and unfortunately, they don't have the place to be even like, I want to leave.
For sure.
Yeah, but we do.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. But everyone should have that right. I mean, that's partly why it's so important, like you're saying, to participate in politics in our world. Yeah. Right? And it's beautiful that there's so many other political parties that are springing up. They're saying more or less the same thing, but I'm seeing our democracy cooler. I'm enjoying seeing that, it's beautiful to see. Now, I think one big thing that they did mention, or the president did mention, is obviously safety and security. But I always feel like every time he says something, there's a line put in there where he has to mention GBV. To me, it almost feels like he's saying it in passing. It isn't something that is important enough to garner the right reaction from the government. And it isn't about GBV only. Yeah. South Africa is an extremely violent country across the board.
Yeah.
It's this intent around keeping the citizens safe, which I don't see.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we are a violent society, and studies have been done to this effect, that point out. And even every year when we look at crime stats and things like that, the nature of violent crime, those numbers are quite staggering, and it's quite scary. And some people would say it's linked to the kind of past that we had, etc. But that is true insofar as, for example, we see it in our own sort of lives. If your wife goes out jogging at 6, you're not completely comfortable, with the idea that she can go out jogging alone.
Going to the shops. Hey, I'm stressed here.
That's the thing. You're stressed. If your wife or your sister is on the streets alone, it's stress. And you hear on social media, you see all the time these sort of harrowing accounts from women who are not able to just exercise basic daily freedoms, for fear of something could happen to them. And so it tells you something about the society in which we live, and it's quite scary. And going back to what we were talking about earlier on about the idea of living in other countries. A lot of people who have actually left this country and live in other countries, like we've got friends who live in the UAE, friends who live in Europe, they'll tell you that at 11 p.m. I can go jogging without fear that anything will happen to my bodily integrity or anything like that. And that is a major life quality, indicator.
Yeah.
And I mean, even as a father, who, if we're gonna, I don't know, to some extent, I'm traditional about this. You the father, you the provider, you the protector. I stress about how well I can protect my family.
Yeah.
You think about those things.
Yeah.
You think about. And
you have a standalone home. And you had break-ins.
You know what I mean?
Whatnot.
You know what I'm saying? So that's something that preoccupies.
Last time.
19 kg gas cylinder. Hey, I want to fit. Even that.
Cylinder.
Gas cylinder. It was still full. That's the only thing that irritates me. It was still full. But
that's worse.
They managed to carry away.
Because now you got to get the cylinder and the gas.
And that's easily like 1,000 rand, So these are things that preoccupy you. Have I done enough in terms of security? Have I done enough in terms of putting this, that, and the other that will protect my family? And you even start, especially after that break-in, you even start entertaining notions. Do I need to have a gun? Do I need to carry a weapon? And I'm not that way inclined. I don't like weapons. But for the first time, I started thinking, hey, it's a legitimate, question to be asking. Hey, because if somebody breaks that last line of defense and you're in a standalone home, what do you do?
So, Pelele movement, what have you decided?
Well, wife's totally anti-guns.
Okay.
So that's where we are at the moment. She's just like, no, that's not going to happen. Not in this house.
Okay, but then when you guys discuss it, what do you guys learn? Because it's unnatural for me when I think about it that South Africans, we've normalized the fact that you need to get a home. You need a 10-foot wall after that. Electric fencing or plus nowadays electric plus barbed wire on top of it, right? You need these security companies to be part of this thing. Whatever this thing is, you panic buttons and then they come, which they never do, by the way. I've never seen them thwart the crime. I've never. I've always seen them afterwards.
After the fact. Yeah.
You need cameras in the house, out around the property, motion sensors. You know what I mean? And now other people will get firearms and whatnot. So all of this, just to live, right? I mean, it should drive people mad. But we've normalized it. It's almost like I'm the crazy one for not wanting those things.
100%, yeah.
Like I don't want a home with a 10-foot wall. To me, it seems like I am literally barricading myself just so that I can live.
Yeah.
And it's those things that, not to say that it's greener on the other side, but I'm saying that is there an alternative? I'm just looking for something different.
Yeah.
Where I can just live. And if something happens security-wise, that's an anomaly.
Yeah.
But people still get broken into with all these things.
That's true. That's
right?
true.
With everything that people have. You're like, how did they get in? But they still get in.
Yeah. Dude, I think you're absolutely like on the money. It's incredibly abnormal. And as you're saying, we've normalized the abnormal in this country. And we carry on. There's a lot, there's this refrain that we're a ticking time bomb. Everything that you've just described to me is symbolic of a bomb that's already exploded.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that living behind these barricades, private security company, is not a sign or symbol of an explosion, even symbolically or metaphorically on a social level. That those things are not normal.
Yeah.
But as you say, we've normalized those things, and it's absolutely insane that that's how we're forced to live.
And it's almost like a king, he has like Joseph foot is Tandu Komelan. It's almost like a badge of honor that my security can do this. I've got these cameras, you know what I mean? Like, I can see my CCTV on my phone, and it's real time and whatnot. I'm like, you know what I mean?
It's like we're not security personnel.
No, we shouldn't be. But it's those are the things that I think they weigh on me about the country, and that's why I was like, I understand you saying that SONA is not necessarily like a binding document, but it's important for us to understand what the intention for the upcoming government is. I mean, Cyril, I don't think he's lasting this year. And I think South Africans have to vote.
It's a big call. Man.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think. Look, I think we're very partisan, and it's very our choice of who leads us, because this is our political structure. We're not going to change it anytime soon, although I think we should. But it's not changing anytime soon. It's based along racial lines, right? A lot of that. Like, it's like, okay, laba yang ngeke ngibavotele, laba, yeah. But at this point, we just have to give someone else a shot, right? We have to, because the issues are all the same. The issues are the same of king, healthcare, crime. They are the same.
Yeah.
We just need to see, can someone else do something different?
Yeah.
Or do you see it in another way?
Look, for me, the exercise of voting, for example, is the way I see it in this country is not a rational exercise.
Okay.
And I'm not sure in which country it is actually a fully rational exercise. And so people vote for what motivates their voting is not necessarily a rationally considered, and that is also understandable given the traumatic sort of past that we've had, and you hear strange things like the ANC took us out of Egypt, and like metaphors like that, like the biblical reference of the Israelites, and so when you look at everything that's going on, rationally, yes, what you're saying is let's just give somebody else a chance and see if we can shape an alternative future. But that's not how it necessarily works in this country, and that worries me. But democracy in one man one vote says everyone is allowed to vote, and I'm not trying to be on some Socrates to say that voting you should be qualified to vote.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but what I also see is that a lot of I think now more than ever in the public sentiment, there is a recognition of what you're saying, to be like, actually, it's been 3 decades. This is where we are. Surely, this can't be the best that we can do for ourselves.
Yeah, and we know it isn't.
Yeah, and I think I'd never seen it, but it's quite encouraging that people are starting to imagine ourselves and our future, our public imagination with an alternative political future. And I'm not saying it's going to change necessarily in this upcoming election, but there is starting.
We've been saying that every election, you know that. We've been saying that every election.
These things take time, though.
Yeah, no, it takes time.
These things take time.
100%.
But I think now more than ever in the public conversation, there is a recognition that, hang on, we should be thinking about things differently and thinking about possibly someone else or someone else's, given the fact that we are now also moving into this weird coalition space, that we're experiencing as a country. So, we're likely to see interesting changes. Yeah.
We have what we have.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you there. I don't necessarily agree with the current structure that we have as the so-called democracy, because it's led us to this. It's evident it doesn't work. It's very, very evident.
Yeah.
But we have what we have.
Yeah.
So decisions must be made.
Yeah.
But you're saying it takes time. I do agree it takes time. But also, the world has been around for way too long for us to not have learned from other democracies or other countries that have gone through similar things and have turned things around very quickly by taking very, very, very active steps and in some instance, not allowing the masses to decide. You almost actually have to decide on their behalf, but gain them into your confidence. And if we all collectively buy into a vision, we know this. I don't have to mention the countries that have turned things around. It's hard, but you can. But we are in an extreme situation. We don't have the luxury to be like, okay, let's try another 5 years. Do we? We don't.
No.
So it's extreme.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? So I feel like as citizens, we have to make extreme choices, but also hold the people that we have put there in power to account. And if it doesn't fucking work, burn it down.
Ben. Yeah. No, I think definitely we have to think differently as a citizenry. And like I say, I think now more than ever, I'm starting to hear those chats.
Yeah.
Starting to hear. But also, there's also something to be said about us in an urban setting like this, us so-called clever blacks who listen to 702, being in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And thinking that our opinions on Twitter are the sum total of, or representative of the sum total of society.
100%.
But at best, South African politics are fraught and difficult, And like I say, what motivates people across the political spectrum is different. And I think that's the challenge you have in a country as diverse as South Africa, And I think you mentioned this earlier as well, that race also plays a part, because of the past.
Big part.
Yeah, that because of the past that we've had. And we are not yet at a place, I don't think, where we've managed to break down those structural racial barriers. So the logic of this country is still very much along those racial lines, and we're still guided by those things that we thought we were trying to address in the past 8 decades. So,
okay,
yeah.
So in closing, then, what are your prospects for your country, particularly now that you said voting is irrational? So angazi if uzovote, number one. And so what's your outlook?
I'm definitely voting.
Okay.
I think it's important. I know there are woke arguments. Come for me if you will. I don't care.
Yeah.
There are woke arguments that say, voting is useless. It doesn't matter, etc., etc. But I think there's something that you said, that this is a structure that we have. And within the structure that we have, voting counts.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to vote. And I hope everyone is registered to vote. And you still can register to vote up until proclamation. I know I'm going off script a little.
No, it's cool.
But
yeah.
I think it's important. Go register to vote until an election date has been proclaimed by the government and been gazetted. You can still even vote online, even if you miss the voter registration date. So go out and vote. I think in terms of the outlook for the country, I think South Africa has massive potential and a unique opportunity with its youth population. And this for me is what I am hoping will be the change, right? Is that this youth population, there's I think about a stat that says about 40 million youth who are eligible to vote hadn't registered.
Yeah.
I hope that will change. And I think that if this country is to change, it will change on the back of a youth vote, so to speak. And that is politically. And we saw it in Zambia, In Zambia, there was the party that brought the country into independence that was taken out just recently. And this is happening right before our very eyes, on the back of that youth vote, where young people stood up and said, we're tired of this nonsense. We're tired of these geriatrics and this old liberation logic. And nothing against liberation politics and but we want something else. We want a different future. We're growing up in a different world, and this is what we want. And they were able to shift the dial. And I think that is the moment that South Africa needs to get to, where young people are not only preoccupied with ideas of groove and nice time. Nothing wrong with that. It's great. But I just hope and wish that young people start thinking about their life chances and politics more, and start seeing it as something that is relevant to their everyday existence and not something that is just for old people and our grannies and parents. And I think that is where the shift is going to happen in this country.
Okay. No, I'll tend to agree with you there. I totally agree. And I think look, we're fathers, so our core audience, I'm honest, is 35 to about 45, which is our age, right? But if you want to speak to young people, I think you need to find them where they are. And I don't know if any of these guys are doing that, unless, of course, young people mobilize themselves and form something that speaks to them directly. And I think, yes, the party that does that can speak to young people across the board, race, color, creed. That's the game changer for me.
Yeah.
So far, all these political parties, even the new ones, they're still just speaking to us.
Yeah.
They're still speaking to middle class. It's in the suburbs. Yes, they mobilize now and then in the townships, but more often than not, it's us. So it's either you're speaking to us or you're speaking to the masses. So you're like, you go the extreme route of saying, they're eating our money, fuck these people. You understand?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. But I also agree with you. And I think, yes, people should go out and vote and educate yourself.
Yeah.
So with whatever party is offering, read their manifesto, find out what they're trying to offer, understand it first so that at least you're making an informed decision based on what you have, not an emotional one.
Definitely.
And I think then we can start being active and saying, no, I voted for this one because 1, 2, 3. I'm holding my leadership to account because of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, I'm optimistic. I'm choosing to see the glass half full about this country.
Yes.
I want to stay. I think that the grass is greener where you water it, and I want to stay and water the grass in this country.
I love that. Yeah. So we'll end it on that. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you again for listening to this episode of the Timeless Playbook. Remember to like, share, rate the content at the end of this podcast. Until next time, sharp.